Auburn's wide receiver room is stacked, but will Perry Thompson rise to the cream of the crop?
This is the Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub, Ike Jones, Be Will, Mike G. You are now listening to
Weekend Tailgate brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com. Use /WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Golden's Cast Iron, longtime sponsors of the War Report. We appreciate them for sponsoring this segment. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Guys, join as a member. We appreciate all our patrons. We got some live film reviews. You guys got 3 Ashton Daniels film reviews if you are a member. So join as a member, get access to that content. We're going to be hitting you guys with some even more film reviews here before the season starts. So you know what kind of Auburn football you'll be watching this fall. You can give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. Let's see if we can give 20 given away today. Guys, go ahead and smash that gifted membership button for us. I want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. And our friends at the Vibe Vault, visit them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. Not just barbers, lifestyle sultans, the Vibe Vault. Let's jump in here. I'm here with my guy, Ike Jones. There he goes. Ike Jones. Weekend Tailgate, Sunday, June 15th. We're talking wide receiver today, and we are honed in on one Perry Thompson. Now, Ike, you and I did a wide receiver segment, and I don't know if you still have that graphic, and we can get that loaded in here for our viewers today. But we projected this wide receiver room, talked about who's going to start. At the top of the list is Cam Coleman. Everybody knows Cam Coleman is going to be a guy in 2025. I think it's a foregone conclusion that Eric Singleton is going to be one of those guys as well. Reports out of the summer, he was already a 4.3 guy. Now they're saying he's a low 4.2s guy. I can't wait to see him. His route running, his speed, just stuff that really hard to teach, but certainly he's got those things in spades. And those are the 2 guys we know for certain. We assume the next guy is going to be Malcolm Simmons because of his youth, where he was recruited, and how much he played last year. Hugh Freeze says that Malcolm is in a good position for this year. But the question persists beyond those 3, at least in my mind. Who's next on the field? Do we see more 10 personnel? Before we get into Perry specifically, talk to me about this wide receiver room. Hugh Freeze, to get all these guys the ball, is going to have to do something that he has not done at all his first 2 years. What are the chances that we see it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you've got enough quality personnel out there. First and foremost, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Auburn wide receivers will be making a lot of DBs feel like their children out there during this season if the pass game is doing what it's supposed to do. But
great day to send somebody.
Yeah. Listen, it's going to happen because you've got guys that are going to make you feel as if you are a child out there trying to cover them. But yeah, I think this is a dynamic wide receiver room that definitely goes about 5 or 6 deep with quality guys. It goes more than 5 or 6 deep, but as far as guys that have had playing time, Perry Thompson, not a lot, but he has enough potential and talent to be in that conversation. Not a lot of playing times, I should say, but he has enough talent to be in that conversation. But in terms of what I feel about this room, it's the same that a lot of people feel about this room. This is one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, not in the SEC, in the country. This is one of the best wide receiver rooms, and I think that they will get the opportunity to show that this year. You asked the question, will there be more 10 personnel? Of course there will be, because you need to get these receivers on the field. I don't think that the unlike Rivaldo Fairweather being the talented pass catcher last season, and they wanted to keep on the field, I don't see that being the case this year, where they're going to want to go with more 12 and have 2 tight ends on the field to keep Valdo out there. I think you see more 10 this year because you got wide receivers that are able to go out there and go get it, get them out there, let them do their thing.
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to watch these receivers work. We did another segment recently about what does this look like from game one? Like, do we see the full-fledged version of this game one? Or what do you see Hugh Freeze doing? Do you see him inching his way into this, testing the waters? How confident will this staff feel that come Baylor August 29th that they're going to be ready to put it on them?
I mean, I think you got to. I think you just got to go out there and be who you're going to be the identity that you want to show. Now, you don't show everything, right? Like, you hope that you can keep it in some of the more base situations where you're doing more RPO or more designed, screens and that thing, sort of thing, but and not have to get too tricky. But it's Baylor, man, and it's not a opening the no disrespect. Well, actually, I'm gonna stop saying no disrespect. I'm gonna say all disrespect intended when I get into these moments where I'm talking about teams. All disrespect intended to Alabama A&M last year as the opener. It's not playing Alabama A&M in your first game. You are playing a Power 4 team that deserves some consideration. That's going to have a brilliant defensive mind and Dave Aranda out there. That's going to have a dynamic offense led by Sawyer Robertson. You need to be able to put up points. Go out there and show teams what they have in store that they need to prepare for the remaining 11 games this season, or 14 games to see however many games Auburn's going to play this season. The remainder of the teams on that schedule need to say, wow, this Auburn offense has a lot that they're throwing out there at you. Show it during the Baylor game and continue to show it throughout the season.
Well, yeah. Look, game one is going to be interesting. I think game one, you're going to see extinction levels of freak out from the fan base if the first quarter is rough. And I think they do need some leeway for it to look a little rough here on the road game one. But let's talk about Perry Thompson, because that's who we're here to talk about today. Perry Thompson, the former 5-star wide receiver. He was in the same class as Cam Coleman. We released an article about this on thewarreport.com talking about, I think people forget, as far as high school recruits are concerned, he's the 3rd highest rated recruit that they've brought in since Hugh Freeze has been at Auburn. I mean, Perry Thompson is that can't miss guy. And not only is he can't miss guy, he flipped his commitment from Alabama to Auburn. Through Hugh Freeze in the pool, a lot of people look at his commitment as one of those things that helped keep that class going. Look, man, I feel like he has to take the step. And during A-Day, it appeared as if he's the type of playmaker that you just get on the field and you let make plays. I'm not sure how I feel as the summer goes along. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about guys coming in and jumping over Perry, especially when, again, they're not saying he's not putting in the work. They're not saying he's not studying the playbook. Perry Thompson has to play this year. And I think he has to play a significant amount of time.
If he earns that spot, then absolutely. I'm not of the mindset that you play him just because he's highly rated. If there's a guy that's better than him as far as being where they need to be and has got the talent, you play them. But if Perry Thompson is ready, then you absolutely unleash him out there. To your point, I think that he needs to get a little bit of that Malcolm Simmons treatment from last year, though. Even if he's not fully ready, listen, we'll just put him out here and figure out ways to get him the football. I think that needs to be the mindset towards Perry Thompson, is get him involved in some kind of way. No, he doesn't know exactly where to be all the time. No, he's not going to be blah, 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 but he's a big physical receiver. There is use for him, especially in a team that was so terrible in the red zone. You can't tell me a big physical receiver can't be utilized in the red zone. Yeah. I just don't believe that.
There was a picture of Perry on social media that I saw yesterday, standing next to some other football players, and people were like, "Good guy. He's getting so strong. He looks like a tight end." Yeah. But he is that. I believe you when you say he is going to be that physical. I'm going to go ahead and put my request in now, Ike, for some Perry Thompson film. I know there's not a ton, so it should be a quick watch the film. But I think that people are forgetting how good this kid is, how high his ceiling actually can be. And this is part of the good and the bad of recruiting. I think it's a good thing that you can have a guy like Perry Thompson on your roster. And we're even having this conversation about how much he's going to play. That speaks to how talented Auburn is at wide receiver. Now, if you've followed this conversation since 2020, all we've heard is we don't have receivers that can catch. Hugh Freeze said you need guys that not only that can catch, but would catch radius. So they went out and they got Perry Thompson. He was, depending on what service you were looking at, he was inside the top 30 as a recruit. Well inside the top 30 as a recruit, consensus. And I think that Perry Thompson, needs to take the step forward. The next conversation I want to have is about that room in general and Perry Thompson's potential lack of development because we're not talking about him as a bona fide starter, and he came in a 5-star. But a lot of people in our comments and on social media have pointed to Marcus Davis as insufficient and not up to the task of coaching these high-level wide receivers. You've looked at the film, you've studied it last year. What do you think about Marcus Davis in this equation? Does, his lack of development point to the wide receiver coach to say, hey, I'm not sure this guy is getting the tutelage that he needs? Or is this much ado about nothing and Marcus Davis is doing just fine?
So in the way that Coach Hugh Freeze has structured this staff, I don't know that that's Marcus Davis's primary role is the development of the wide receiver room. I think he is brought there to kind of understand what needs to happen from a strategic standpoint overall with the offense and where the wide receivers fit into that. The development of route running or their ability to block and all that, I think that they have analysts and such on the staff that are more specifically suited to do those things than Marcus Davis. Marcus Davis was brought in because he's a good recruiter. He was brought in because he's good at being able to get energy in that room. I don't know that he's the technical wide receiver chiseling tool to get that guy into that position. So I wouldn't point to Marcus Davis specifically for that. But I mean, I don't know that that's an unfair critique to say Marcus Davis isn't the best developer of wide receivers. He's never done it before. So I don't really have much of a track record other than these, at every other stop that he's only been there like a year, maybe a year and a half. Right. And so, and Marcus Davis himself wasn't like some outstanding receiver where you can say, look at my film and see, like he was an okay receiver. He wasn't terrible.
He was pretty
great.
good. He was a pretty good Auburn receiver.
Yeah, I'm saying he wasn't great, wasn't terrible. He was okay. But again, Auburn's not really known for that. So I wouldn't expect to have a receiver from Auburn's past to be that kind of guy. So I don't know that it's an unfair critique, but again, I don't know that that is what his primary function is either.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's talk about where Perry projects. Now, I believe last year, every time I looked at the depth chart, they had him stacked behind Cam Coleman on the depth chart. Who projects at the outside? And I think we had it. We put Perry Thompson in our starting 4. But I believe you had Eric Singleton at the slot and Malcolm Simmons at the slot. And then Perry and Cam on the outsides. But if, is it possible that we see Horatio Fields jump ahead of him at the outside? He's got a lot of experience. What are the options there? And what are the possible combinations? If we only see 11 personnel, 2 wideouts, 1 slot, 1 tight end, and a running back, where does Perry fit into maybe an 11 personnel package, which I know we'll see?
Yeah, I think Perry would be that next level outside guy in an 11 personnel package. Like if I were to predict a starting wide receiver group in an 11 personnel package, it would be on one side Cam Coleman and the other side Eric Singleton and Malcolm Simmons in the slot. So I think that Perry Thompson would be the guy behind either Cam Coleman or Eric Singleton in that regard, next up to be on the outside there. And then if you go and you spread it out a little bit more and you go into the 10 and you have 4 receivers out there, then it is a conversation of whether or not that next outside guy, which I believe the next outside guys are Perry Thompson and Horatio Fields, which of those two would be that 4th receiver on the field. And to me, I think that's more situational than it is anything else. Because listen, Horatio Fields, who I do have some film coming up on, is a very solid outside receiver that can compete at this level for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Perry Thompson, they're going to slot him in. The next part of this that I want to talk about are the rotations and how much we see them cycle receivers in and out of the game. They stuck with their primary guys last year. But do you see them running a little fast this year, maybe? And trying to wear defenses down, subbing packages in and out, trying to catch the defense off guard.
Yeah, I think this needs to be the year that you regain the Hugh Freeze identity, which has more tempo involved, which means you're going to need to cycle through. And I think that's the big thing to remember about the way the first 2 years have gone. You have not seen a lot of guys get opportunities just because Auburn hasn't been running enough plays. And if Hugh Freeze really gets the tempo going offensively the way that he wants to, the way that I know that they want to be able to do that, like I think this entire offensive staff is committed to the idea that this offense works the best when we're running tempo and we have enough guys at wide receiver where we can call plays where we're running a 40-yard route with a guy and he's tired, get him off the field, get another guy in here who's got speed that can go run that same route on the next play. And we don't feel as if there's a significant drop-off in our ability to execute that sort of scheme. Yes, this needs to be the year of speed and tempo and rotation at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, I can't help but think that what does a successful year look like for this wide receiver room? In my mind, somebody's got to be 1,000-yard receiver, whether it's Eric Singleton or it's Cam Coleman, or maybe if it's even Malcolm Simmons out of the slot. Like, we don't know who Jackson Arnold is going to favor just yet. What this offense is going to look like. But what we do know is they did not fail to produce explosive plays last year.
For sure.
As much as Auburn struggled to score, boy, could they produce some explosive plays in the passing game. So it will be interesting to see if they can continue those explosive plays, but also find some sort of flow to this offense to where you are finishing drives and guys are getting in the end zone, because that's really what it's going to be about. I can't help but think, what does a successful season look like for Perry Thompson this year? Is it what Cam Coleman did last year? A 500 to 600 yard receiver? Is it, 400 and a couple of TDs? What do we expect from Perry Thompson here this year to say, look, not only did he have a decent season, but we're not even having this conversation in 2026 about who's starting on the outside.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult thing to be able to project here, right? Because if you think about, like, when you start getting into these kind of projections, right? Like, let's start at the top, and we know who the top 3 guys are going to be, right? We know it's going to be, or at least we assume. Let me not say we know. I assume Eric Singleton, Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons will be the top 3 most targeted receivers on this offense, and the guys who get the vast majority of the snaps and will be the top 3 in receiving yards, right? Like, that's my assumption in this offense this season. Those 3 guys will be at the top. The question you have to ask yourself is, how many yards do you think the number 1 receiver is going to get? How many yards do you expect the number 2 receiver to get? How many yards do you expect the number 3 receiver to get? And then, if Perry Thompson is number 4 or 5 on that list, how many yards are left? Because all of this projects to how many yards you think Jackson Arnold is going to throw for in the season, right? So if you're saying your top guy is going to have 1,000, 1,100 yards on the season, your number 2 guy is going to have 800 yards on the season. You're already at 1,900 yards between 2 guys. And if your third guy is going to have 500-600, now you're into the 2,400 yard range, 2,500 yards for Jackson Arnold. If you think he's going to be a 3,000 yard receiver, there's still room for 2 or 3 other 400 or 500 yard receivers left on this offense, right? And so I think that that's a safe place to put him in, like 4 to 5, like you said, maybe a Cam Coleman-esque season.
Yeah,
500 yards, a couple of touchdowns. And the question is, how many targets is he going to get? And, does he take advantage of those opportunities with those targets and all that sort of thing? But I think a 400 to 500-yard season would be a good season, especially if you're saying he's the fourth or fifth guy on your offense that year. And he's not getting as many opportunities, but he's taking good advantage of the opportunities that he does get.
Yeah. I would like to see him in that Cam Coleman range. But obviously, like I said, it's a lot of mouths to feed there, and they're going to have to figure out a way to feed them. What will determine how many opportunities they get will be that run pass balance.
Right.
This is something you and I have talked about on camera and off camera is what do we expect in terms of play count? And what do we expect that run pass ratio to be? Now, we've told you guys, we've told the listeners, when Hugh Freeze offenses have worked the best, it's been about a 55-45 split in favor of the run. However, they haven't failed to get a high number of pass plays in there. And to me, that says that they just ran more plays. They were more successful sustaining drives. They got in the end zone. Yeah. I've got to think that we've got to see that this year so that the opportunities will be there for Perry to play more or for them to rotate more guys.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is going to be incumbent on the offense to stay on the field. And I think that's where guys like Perry Thompson should be able to be the most benefit to you, right? Like in third and medium, you need guys that can just win one-on-ones, whether that is by speed with an Eric Singleton type quickness or Malcolm Simmons type quickness, or whether it's size with a guy like Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Horatio Fields. You have enough guys on this offense to be able to, in a third and medium scenario, give Jackson Arnold opportunities to say, pick a side and go figure out where your one-on-one is, throw a catchable ball and let these guys go and get it. Perry Thompson needs those opportunities this year because he's the type of receiver that should be able to help you there, right? Like to me, there's very little excuse for, and I said this earlier, Perry Thompson not getting the Malcolm Simmons treatment, which is third and medium, and we need to just go throw the ball to somebody to go get a 5-yard catch. There's no reason why Perry Thompson can't be the guy that is consistently in there for you and be a security blanket for Jackson Arnold in those types of scenarios, even if that's not but 4 or 5 times a game. That's going to get him, because listen, if you do that enough, defenses are going to start being like, all right, I know when Perry Thompson comes in the game, they're trying to get this kind of look. That opens you up for a whole bunch of other stuff later in the season as you start to show that tendency. I think that should be, if you're not fully confident in his ability to run everything, then give him a little square on the play sheet. You did it last year with Malcolm Simmons, and let him just be a guy that can go do, because Perry Thompson is, I think, faster than people realize just because he's a bigger receiver. He's still got speed. People forget last year when they were just coming and visiting Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson out there racing, right? And Perry wasn't getting dusted in that race, bro. Like, he's out there. He's got the speed to be able to do the stuff, and he's a bigger body. He's a more physical guy. So there are opportunities to just put him on the field and get him the dang football.
Yeah. I felt this way about Cam Coleman last year. Now, he was on the field, but just throw him the football. It was, they talked about, oh, you can't force it to him. Yes, you can, actually. He's Cam Coleman.
Yeah.
You just throw him the ball, man. I mean, and I'm not saying force it to make bad throws, obviously. I'm just saying there were more opportunities to get him the ball than Auburn took last year. And if Perry Thompson is going to be a guy for you, he's going to have those opportunities. Isaac, in recent years, I think that wide receiver numbers have waned because targets have waned.
Right.
Auburn does not have a receiver with more than 70 targets in the last 7 years. Now, what's the significance of that number? Well, the top receivers in the league year in and year out are well north of 70 targets. As a matter of fact, they got 80, 90 catches.
Right.
They got more catches than Auburn receivers have combined targets in some cases. They've got to create more opportunities with scheme. And that, before we go to the break here, the other side of this coin, I see you guys saying it in the comments, and we'll address this before we get to your comments. Jackson Arnold has got to deliver the football.
Correct.
Not only does he have to deliver the football, he's got to deliver an accurate football.
For sure.
Because if Auburn is going to exceed expectations this year, he not only has to get the ball there, he has to get it there in a position for them to be able to use their athleticism to make a play after the catch, rather than expending all their energy just trying to catch a ball that kind of got near them.
Right.
That's the difference between good and great, or great and otherworldly, is that connection. For all reports point to they are developing that sort of chemistry as we speak. Where do you see Jackson Arnold in all this, man? I mean, we talked a lot about what we project for the wide receivers, but they can't catch yards that he doesn't throw.
Right.
And I think not only does he have to rake up the numbers, but he's got to be accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, of course, that's the key to all of this, is they can't throw the ball to themselves. So how is Jackson Arnold going to be able to diagnose and get the ball where it needs to go? Fair or unfair, what happened last season happened with Jackson Arnold. I want to turn this into the Jackson Arnold situation here, but like, right. I hate seeing people repeat a narrative that Jackson Arnold is turnover prone, because I just don't think that jives with the reality of what happened last year at Oklahoma. He only had 3 interceptions on the season last year. 12-3 was his touchdown to interception ratio, right? So it doesn't speak to him putting the ball in harm's way a bunch, even if there were more interceptable passes that were out there. 3 is the number that's out there as far as interceptions that he threw last season. The turnover situation, as far as fumbles are concerned, I think is a direct correlation to how often he was being pressured and how often he was getting hit last year. Does that mean that he should have had better ball security? 100%. But dang, bro, like when you're getting pressured as consistently as he was, we looked at the numbers for Oklahoma's offensive line last year. It was one of the worst in the country, not just the SEC, the country. And that's including group of 5. Like, it wasn't good. So when your quarterback is in a situation where he's constantly under pressure, he's going to have more opportunities to fumble the football. So I think that that's a little overblown narrative. Yes, he can protect the football better. I don't think that he's turnover prone. All that being said, his completion percentages when he was under pressure, we looked at this, were actually pretty good.
Yeah.
For a guy who was under duress as much as he was able to complete passes under duress. That bodes well if you're going to lessen how many times he's under pressure, and he performs just as well with fewer times being under pressure for Auburn offensively. All that said, Jackson Arnold has guys that can bail him out. This is the biggest thing that people talked about with guys like Johnny Manziel, where he was getting bailed out all the time by having, Mike Evans to throw the ball to. It wasn't that Johnny Manziel was so great. Mike Evans was the guy on the other end. Well, he's got a couple of guys that fit the mold of a Mike Evans out here for him to be able to do. So if he's good under pressure and he has guys that can go out there and go get it, there's no reason why this offense should not be able to move the ball consistently. I just think, again, I don't want to go too crazy on the book, but I do want to say that, listen, man, we got some opportunities to go out here and make some things happen. And Jackson Arnold has the tools to be able to do it.
Not to your point about him not turning the ball over. He on the season only had 3 turnover-worthy plays. This is a stat that PFF keeps, and I'm looking at the averages here. Jackson Dart had 6 turnover-worthy plays. I have to believe that all the metrics are saying that Jackson Arnold is going to be a very good quarterback.
I think they indicate that again Again, I'm not saying he doesn't have his flaws. Like we've looked at the film on him as well. If you want to go look at that film, Green Name Gang, it's out there right now that you can go and see. And we're analyzing literally every single drop back from Jackson Arnold in 3 different games last year. I think I have 3 different games worth of film out there. So you can go see for yourself. And some of it was good. Some of it was bad. A lot of it was really awful offensive line play. But to your point, the metrics indicate maybe the stats don't tell the entire story of how many touchdowns he threw, how many yards he threw for, him getting benched, all of those things. I don't know that that's the entire story of Jackson Arnold as a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's gonna be interesting. Let's get to some comments here and get to the break, and then we'll continue this conversation after the break. You guys are watching the weekend tailgate, brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. AU Alum 94 says all this wide receiver talk hinges on the efficiency of our QB position. Anyway, the wide receiver goes as the QB room goes until it goes as the wide receiver goes, because the fans are complaining that our wide receivers can't catch. Well, now you solved that part of the equation. So, yeah, I mean, they've set a very high floor, I think, for Jackson Arnold this year by stacking the deck around him. So something you've heard us say a lot. We'll continue to say it. There's a lot of talent around him right now. AU Alum 94 again says if Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb, who can catch out of the backfield, are solid enough, the QB position solid enough, this O could be lights out. Agreed. It's time for us to see something, or it might be lights out Hugh Freeze. Anthony Long says Coach Hugh Freeze doesn't have the luxury of the excuse that this is Jackson Arnold's first year in his system. Jackson Arnold has to hit this year. Next year isn't promised. I want to stay here for just a quick second. Next year is likely, but he's right. It's not promised.
For sure.
And until we've seen that you have truly raised the floor, because the floor can't be miss a bowl game, not with this much talent.
Right.
I believe I agree with Anthony. Next year is definitely not promised. I don't expect to see it. But when Hugh Freeze was asked by us, about pressure for next season, this is what we're talking about. First couple of years just weren't great. They were less than great. They weren't sad. This year, you've got to be able to turn Frown upside down, and to the tune of 8 wins. 8 wins, there's no discussion to be had about year 4. In my book. 9
yeah,
wins,
I mean, there will be people who will want to have that discussion. I don't think that it's a fair conversation to have, regardless of, listen, and a couple of those losses would have to be absolutely mind-blowingly awful coaching situations where you just timeout usage or something like that cost you the game for it to even be a conversation for me at 8 wins.
Yeah. Let's move on here. Hey, Ulam says, love Marcus Davis, but the job is the job. If he isn't developing these wide receivers, then who is?
There's a whole staff worth of people that are working to develop the different position groups. It's not just the guy who's the position group room coach. Auburn's got a huge staff.
Yeah. Felix the Cat says, well, I was hoping when Perry would break the rotation, but he came in late. I figured it wasn't going to happen. You have to have that spring training so he would know the playbook. You do get a significant advantage coming in the spring. You see a lot of players push for that, Ike. That early graduation, get in there in the spring. They don't want to wait. They want to play now. And if you want to get on the field in the fall, going through spring, think about how big spring was for Deuce Knight. Had Deuce Knight come in the summer, I think it might be a foregone conclusion that Ashton Daniels is going to be QB2. But he got in and he put something on tape to make them think about it. So I agree with Felix here. TK says, agree, Madison. Perry lost 10 pounds from 227 to 217 to be a wide receiver targeted training to get fast. He is about to explode. So I haven't heard anything about him dropping weight. Have you heard anything about him dropping weight to increase speed?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm looking right now at the Auburn site, though, and it does show him at 6'3", 217 right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's 217 is still big.
He's still a, like I said, but yeah, last year they had him listed at 222 on the site, and this year they have him listed at 217. So he's definitely cut weight. Again, if his thing is he wants to get faster and he's dropping weight to be able to do that, but he's not losing muscle, then that does become a very scary proposition for anybody trying to defend him on the outside. Like, just He's already a beast of a human being, is my point.
Yeah. HYTYD Fishing. Who's working harder this offseason, Malcolm or Perry? That will determine who sees more playing time. I don't think that either one of them are not working hard. Everybody's working hard.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a Malcolm or Perry conversation, though, just because they're so different in how they're going to be utilized. Even though, listen, again, Perry Thompson's versatility, I think, is an underrated portion of what he can do. He can go and be a jet sweep guy if you need him to be, because he's got that kind of speed. He doesn't necessarily have the same kind of quickness as a Malcolm Simmons, but he's got speed. And you can move him into the slot. I think when people think slot receiver, they think Wes Welker. They think, the small, shifty guys. You don't have to be small and shifty to play at the slot. They can line you up wherever you want to. It's really about what route they ask you to run, and you can run a bunch of different routes. It's more so about who they want to line you up in coverage against, right? And if they want Perry Thompson, who's quick, to be lined up against a slower footed safety than an outside corner, or if they have shorter corners and they want to put him on, it's really more about matchups than anything else. How do I want to match this guy up against this defense? Do I want to put him matched up against a linebacker in the way that we have this assessment, and he's going to be able to run a drag route against a guy who's running, he's a 4, I don't know what Perry Thompson runs. Let's say he's a high 4.3 guy versus a linebacker who runs a 4.5. And we're running him on a drag route from the corner because the linebacker's got the assignment over there. That's a great matchup for Perry Thompson. And he's a guy who, if they convert that to zone, you can throw it over the middle to him and he can absorb that hit a little bit better. Bunch of different uses for a guy. So again, I don't know that it's necessarily Perry versus Malcolm situation, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they utilize it.
Lawrence Robinson, the red zone percentages should be up. Perry could have 300 yards, but 12 TDs this season. This is an interesting comment. 12 TDs. I mean,
but you could definitely, if they make it a red zone package, right, where as soon as you see them cross the 25, it's Perry Thompson time, and they're just consistently using him as either a blocking wide receiver and then get him as a decoy out there in the flat, isolate him in some sort of way, again, from the slot, and let him run a corner route against a linebacker. He could realistically, if you get enough red zone trips, have a double-digit year in touchdowns just from the fact that they're consistently lining him up in situations where it's advantageous for them to throw him the football. I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Low yardage, but a bunch of scores because they're using him. Like think and this is a quarterback, so it's not an exact comparison, but think about first-year Hugh Freeze and how he used Robbie Ashford and how many touchdowns he had because they were consistently bringing him in red zone situations. Robbie didn't have a bunch of yards that season, but he scored a bunch of touchdowns, right? Because his package that they put him in there for was specifically to be able to target his ability to execute in red zone situations. You could do that with wide receivers. You could do that with running backs. There's a lot of different guys that can specialize in that way for you. I think that could be a very good use for Perry Thompson if you're trying to get him more acclimated and make him feel like he's been useful this season in the offense without having to play him a ton of snaps.
Yeah. Anthony Red says if Perry Thompson doesn't play much this year, he's leaving.
I think that's the fear for a lot of people, is that Perry Thompson will get discontent with the usage out there, and then he'll decide to hit the transfer portal. But I think, again, there are creative ways that you can not have him be a top 4 in snaps guy, but a high usage guy, and feel very much like there is a place for him, and then see his usage grow in that next season. Just convince him there is a spot for you.
Yeah, look, great conversation. We'll continue the wide receiver talk after the break. Guys, this is the weekend tailgate. You guys know the deal. Share this video on social media using @TheWarReport, hashtag Get Your Weight Up. As always, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter @TheWarReport, TW Report on TikTok. Let's pay some bills, and we'll be back to talk more wide receiver on the weekend tailgate.
This edition of The War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com. The Rage Room. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Set up a session today at one of the 2 great locations in Opelika or Birmingham by visiting opelikaRageRoom.com or BirminghamRageRoom.com.
Join as a member. SEC Media Days is on the way, guys. You want to be there. Locked in with us during Media Days, Monday through Thursday. That is July the 14th through the 17th. Hugh Freeze goes on the 15th, and we're going to be bringing you guys a lot of great coverage that week. So help support the work that we're doing by joining as a patron. Also, you can give the gift of the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. Still need to give a few given away here today. Check us out on podcasts, every single podcast network. The War Report is there bringing you guys lots of great audio-only content. We've been on fire on audio lately. You guys have been reaching out to me saying that you love the content. We're going to keep giving it to you. So please go over to your favorite. Go to all of them. Actually, go all of them. Turn on automatic downloads for all of them. Burn up all your hard drive space. Help us out. If you're not a patron, the one thing you can do to help us keep going is just listen. That's it. That's all we ask. So we appreciate our community for helping us out there. Also, our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. Visit them for all your herbal medicinal needs. And our friends at the Vibe Vault. Weekend is here. That's Father's Day. Get your father cleaned up for the rest of the week with our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. The Vibe Vault, not just barbers, a lifestyle consultants. Let's jump back into the conversation here, Isaac. Perry Thompson is a guy, but he won't have to do it alone next year. He's going to have lots of help. Now, we mentioned at the top of the show, Auburn has not struggled to create explosive plays in the passing game. We saw them target him downfield during A-Day. It wasn't televised, but I was there live to see them throw the ball down the field to him. We talked, there was a comment about him getting faster. You can see him being a deep shot guy in this offense, a guy that they take a shot down the field to often when they are looking to catch defenses off guard, create some play actions, and throw a bomb. Touchdown, Perry Thompson.
Yeah, he definitely has that ability, his versatility. And again, if he's gotten faster, he was already fast. So if he's gotten faster, that actually is a pretty scary proposition for a guy at his size being able to move. I saw somebody in the comments mention a guy like DK Metcalf, right? That's the kind of impact a DK Metcalf type of receiver has. DK Metcalf is not the most pristine route running receiver. What he is a big, fast moving object that if you get him in the open field, he's very difficult to keep in front of you if you're a defensive back. If he is in front of you, then he has the size to be able to go and catch it in traffic. So if he's going to be a DK Metcalf-esque type of receiver, that's a great comp for someone his size to be able to make impact at the next level, because if he's on the go route and the guy who's trying to cover him is a 5'11" safety, good luck. If he's on the go route and you're trying to, and now how well he is able to get out of press coverage is going to be a portion of this. But if he can get out of press coverage well with his size, and he's solo covered up the sideline, that's tail lights if he's got the kind of speed that people are saying he's developing. Because if you're in trail now and Perry catches it over the top with a well-thrown pass, good luck catching him, right?
Yeah.
Like Perry Thompson has the potential to be scary, like not just good, but scary because of how he can threaten you with his size and speed.
Auburn had 2 top 20 receivers in the conference last year, Cam Coleman and Keandre Lambert-Smith. This year, could they have 2 top 10 receivers? Keandre Lambert-Smith finished 4th. Now, we talk a lot about, could Auburn have a 1,000-yard receiver this season? I want everybody to know that's listening, there were only 2 in the entire conference last year. Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas, 1,140 yards, and Trey Harris, Ole Miss, 1,030 yards. I believe both those guys are gone. So there is not a returning 1,000-yard receiver in the conference this year. I would think that Cam Coleman makes the jump from 598, practically 600 yards, to into the conversation in that 900-yard range. They're going to target him early in the season. Malcolm Simmons was down at 31 with 451 yards. I think he makes the jump at least into the Cam Coleman range, if not more. But they're going to throw the ball a whole lot more. Do you see 2 top 10 receivers in the conference for Auburn this season?
I think it's possible with Eric Singleton Jr. being out there and the litany of ways that I see them trying to get him the ball. Because I mean, you mentioned Malcolm Simmons last season. Like, Malcolm Simmons was a guy that it was a couple of games into the year before they started trying to really just feed him the football in the way that they did last year. So with him starting out the season in that way, you know, his opportunities are going to be there a little bit earlier. So he should, as you said, make that kind of jump. There is a potential here for 3 Auburn wide receivers to be 800+ yard guys this year, if this offense is clicking the way that it should. It should, because again, you've mentioned this several times. You know, Peyton Thorne's numbers don't look outstanding, but he missed a game and a half. And one of those games was against New Mexico, where he would have put up 300 yards in that game, right? And in that half that he doesn't play versus Arkansas, he probably gets another 70 to 80 yards at minimum in that game, right? So if you tack another almost 400 yards onto Peyton Thorne's season last year, what does that look like from a year with Peyton Thorne last year? I think that Jackson Arnold, from a tool bag perspective, whether or not he's going to have the offensive down, I'm just talking about his ceiling, has the potential to exceed even the PT plus 400. Again, what was Peyton Thorne's yardage last year? 2,500, something like that?
2,700.
27. So if you throw 400 on top of that, you get him into 3,100 yards. I think that Jackson Arnold has the potential to be a 35 to 4,000 yard guy in this offense with all of the tools that he has physically. I'm not even talking about the receivers he has to throw to. Give him the same crop of receivers Peyton Thorne had last year.
Yeah.
And you give him a full complement of an offensive line that doesn't have a billion different combinations because of injury, because Auburn, that was not the case for Auburn last year. They did have to tinker a little bit, but it wasn't. You give him the same protection Peyton Thorne had last year. You give him the same crop of receivers Peyton Thorne had last year. I think Jackson Arnold is a 35 to 4,000 yard receiver or a quarterback last year. I just do, because I think he has a stronger arm. I think that he has a quicker release, and I think that he is a better runner. Like, physically, for everything that Peyton Thorne gives you, I think that Jackson Arnold has a little bit more of all of that stuff, which makes him that much more dangerous in an offense that would protect him better than what Oklahoma did last year, right? So, yes, he's got the potential to be that kind of guy. You add on top of that, this receiver room is actually better than last year's room. Yeah. This offensive line is potentially better than last year's offensive line room was last year. At least at the top level it is. So there's no reason why he can't be a 35 plus 100-yard quarterback this season. And so that puts you again in the conversation where your top 3 guys could be 700 plus, 800 plus receivers.
Yeah, the breakdown there is important that you just gave. Again, Peyton Thorne, 2,713 yards last season. That was good for 7th in the conference. The quarterbacks rated in front of him at 6th, Jalen Milroe, 28-34. At 5th, Taylon Green, 31-46. Carson Beck at 4 with 3,466 yards. Quinn Ewers at 3 with 3,469 yards, 3 yards in front of Carson Beck. Garrett Nussmeier at 2 with 4,043 yards. And then the conference's leading passer, Jackson Dart, with 4,276 yards. I think that Jackson Arnold should easily, we only 3 players in that 3. There was 5 QBs over 3,000 yards, but you had 3 in that cluster of like 3,100 to 3,500 yards. That's where I think I would like to see Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You get one guy's a third of that, and then break the rest up however you see fit, just distributing the football, right? Like, I think that could there'd be 2,000-yard receivers, a couple 500-yard receivers in there.
Man, if Auburn has 2,000-yard receivers this season, I think that Jackson Arnold is well on his way to 4,000 plus yards. I just think that the room is that deep. I don't think that you're going to end up with a 3,000-yard situation with just two guys being the primary targeted guys. I think he gets to closer to 4,000 if that's the case.
Yeah, man. Looking at the conference, how the conference sets up this year, it's going to be interesting to see, where they land. But he's gonna have a big role in where these receivers finish the season here. So they've got to rack up yards through the air, but they've got to run more plays. I want to close the show talking about play calling and where Hugh Freeze's role in all this. I think both of us, based on reports that we've gotten, can assume Hugh Freeze is going to be calling a majority of the plays next year. It is a critical year for him as a coach. I think he's got everybody excited. We talked about reasonable expectations during our one-on-one. He said, "I'm okay with them because it means we've given people something to cheer about, something to expect.
Right.
We've given them something to anticipate, and that's a good thing." I agree with him there too. But all eyes are going to be on this play calling, particularly the situational play calling. Now, on Friday, we released a QB episode where you said Auburn is going to use Ashton Daniels in the Wildcat.
I see it happening.
I do have a problem with it because I hate the Wildcat, but I love it when it works. And when they call it situationally and in the right situations. How does Hugh Freeze use the passing game to solve his first and second down problem with Auburn getting behind the chains and then being in some kind of impossible third down that's really hard to convert? That was a problem for them last year.
Yeah, honestly, the bigger situation wasn't play calling for first and second down with Auburn. It was penalties, right? Like you're getting false starts, bad alignments, guys running the wrong route type of thing. Like it wasn't the play calls that impact. And then his hands were tied a little bit with play calling because of field position in a lot of those games where you're getting pinned inside the 10-yard line. So I think Auburn's bigger problem this season is just going to be stop the first down penalty situation where you get, whether it's procedural, holding, whatever that's going to be that puts you into a first or second and long type of situation. Then you have to try to figure out how you're going to convert in that. And then put yourself in a better position as far as field position is concerned so that you're able to run more of your offense more efficiently. That, for me, was the bigger problem for Auburn than play calling. Play calling wasn't immaculate, right? Like I'm not sitting here trying to absolve poor play calling and bad decisions on the part of this coaching staff last season. But I think the bigger issue for Auburn offensively were those two things, field position and then penalties in the early downs that put you behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. Like play calling is going to be scrutinized, whether it's the problem or not. I think it left a lot to be desired at times last year. Again, I'm saying situationally, but there was a belief that they did not have the personnel to run all of the offense that they wanted. Now, Hugh Freeze said this in the post-game press conferences. We had to shrink the offense this week. They shouldn't have to do that this year. I cannot imagine a scenario where Hugh Freeze gets in front of the microphone post game and said, we're not playing Perry because he's not getting it, and we had to shrink the offense to what these guys can do. That can't be a narrative this year at all. So the same way he can no longer talk about the talent gap. We're not. I mean, we gave you that the first 2 years, Hugh. This year, nobody wants to hear about a talent gap. I think this is another thing that needs a narrative that needs to go away, that guys aren't absorbing the system or they don't understand their assignment or they're not we can't do what we need to do because guys aren't getting it. At some point, you've got a teaching problem.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the approach to the spring was indicative of his own mindset towards how he wanted to teach. It's like, all right, let's just really kind of dig into a little bit more of the mental portion of this, because physically you guys have the tools, but we need to make sure that you understand what we're trying to have accomplished here. And I think that they dug into that a lot more this spring than they had in the previous springs, where they were going through the installs, and he's for the first time now. I mean, it's only been 3 years, so it's not like it's been 15 seasons in this. I'm saying for the first time, but he has back-to-back years now where the offensive coaching staff is intact. It's the same guys going through the same thing. They have an understanding of what each other does, how they want to get into their routines of things. So having the same offensive coordinator, same running back coach, same wide receiver coach, same tight end coach, same offensive line coach, all of those guys being in those rooms together, they're not having to figure it out as much this year. We've already put that work in to figure it out. Now let's go in here and figure out how we can get better at doing the things that we do. So that should lead to better dividends as far as the ability for them to teach it better and for the team to be able to absorb it better.
Yeah. Great conversation as always. Let's get to some comments before we get out of here today. It's Father's Day. We're going to get you guys back to your families celebrating. Legit says Arnold needs to have at least a year comparable to Joe Burrow's first year at LSU.
That's not a bad year to have. Joe Burrow was a guy.
2018.
Yeah, he did well his first season, and he kind of put some guys on notice that, hey, he's a gamer out here, and he's got the ability to handle the pressure in situations. Toughness as a leader was established in that year prior to the Heisman season. So, and I think LSU was like an 8-5 team that year or something like that. So, or 7-5 season team.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to do a little better than that. He was 2,890 yards, 57% completion percentage. That obviously went way up the next year because he was like nearly 80% or something crazy like that the next year. I agree in terms of the moxie and the toughness and those intangibles, but by the numbers, certainly he can do better than 57% completion percentage.
I agree with that.
TK, 4 wides, Cam, Eric, Perry, Malcolm, pick your poison. That's the idea here. All these guys should be so dangerous in the open field that Auburn got a lot of options. And, you know, if you're Jackson Arnold and you just hit the open guy, somebody should be able to make a play. AU alum 94, Cam and PT are those outside guys. Perry Thompson are those outside guys in the red zone where you throw to the back corner of the end zone and tell them to go get it. Yeah, I think we didn't see a lot of fades to Cam in the corner of the end zone last year, did we?
Didn't happen a lot, and I don't understand it. It just seems as if, like, between he and Rivaldo Fairweather, they just did not get utilized enough in that sort of scenario. And it needs to change this year. You've got 3 legitimate fade route guys in Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman, and Horatio Fields this year. They need to use them.
Anthony Long says if AU's 26 schedule is Georgia, Alabama, and then the teams that Auburn didn't play in 24 and 25, Auburn will have the toughest schedule in the nation. Success this year is critical. Need to be in the playoff combo now. I'm not sure what that 26 schedule looks like already, but I can't imagine.
Well, he's just saying if it's all the teams you didn't play plus Georgia and Alabama, that means
they're not going to
pick up LSU, Florida, South Carolina, Texas. Like that is a I
thought we were in a 4-year rotation with the teams that I could be wrong on that one, but
no telling. The landscape of this is shifting quickly. So
yeah, that would be absolutely criminal to have all those teams rotate on. Felix the Cat with the super sticker. We appreciate that. There was a comment there supposed to go with that.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
TK, no Wildcat. Don't signal the defense what you're doing. Jackson Arnold can handle the run. Just say no to packages. Don't help the defense.
I don't think that if you're playing a quarterback, an actual quarterback as the Wildcat person, that it is a signal to the defense, right? Like that guy can still throw. And so I think there is a usefulness to having an actual quarterback be able to run that. So,
yeah. Last comment here before we get out of here. Felix the Cat says, laugh out loud, Ike, man. I knew Mike was going to say something about the Wildcat. He's right, though. I don't love it either. You shouldn't like things that aren't good for your health, Felix. And the Wildcat is one of those things. Great conversation. Let's go on and get out of here, guys. You know,
I just got to acknowledge this one right here. Freebie Will from AU alum with the super chat earlier today.
All right.
Appreciate him for jumping in here. And yes, B Will, we love you, man. Happy Father's Day to you if you're out there listening.
He is a father, 2X or 3X. I think he's got 2 of them.
Got 2 kids, 2 sons.
Got 2 of them over there. Let's go on and get out of here. I want to thank our title sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights. Code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Golden's Cast Iron. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Check us out on podcast. We are wherever you listen to your podcast. Turn it on, subscribe. Hit that automatic download button and help us out. The Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, Just a Sec, and the War Report Gaming Channel. Lots of great audio-only content. The War Report Podcast Network taking care of you and all your Auburn football needs in audio-only format. I want to thank our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. And our friends at the Vibe Vault, you can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants. Guys, we'll be back at you guys tomorrow morning with the Auburn Express. More Auburn football, more Auburn sports, more Auburn. Guys, we're out of here. We're signing off. And as always, more Eagle.